So, Avengers Infinity War is a pretty good movie, but there was a lot of things that I surprisingly had problems with, and we're going to talk about that. Hey everybody, if you haven't guessed yet, it's Martian Monkey here with the Avengers Infinity War movie review. And yes, this would have came yesterday, but there's just so much in this video that I really wanted to get everything right. There's a lot in the movie, so we're just going to go over it in a really good, clean way that would really benefit the overall review, right? So the first half is going to be spoiler free, and then you'll see the spoiler alert when it pops up on the screen, and I'll tell you when it's time to talk all about the spoiling goodies. And let me talk about that for a second, not spoilers specifically, but this movie is a huge spoiler spree. If you don't like spoilers, you need to go see this movie ASAP. I saw it opening night. It was a 2-hour wait line. So there's just a lot of people going to see this right now, mainly because they don't want it spoiled, because there's so many spoilers in this film. But anyway, let's get to my spoiler-free review. So Avengers Infinity War is more like a ride, right, at an amusement park rather than a story, right? I think that Civil War had a lot more story than Infinity War. Then again, Civil War is a better story, you know, like in terms of actual storylines and elements, whereas this movie, let's stop Thanos, guys, right? I mean, that's the entire basic, plot of the movie. Gotta stop this purple guy from taking over the universe, right? So there's not a lot there, but there is some storylines like sprinkled throughout in the movie, but what, they're not really, what they are is really kind of like fillers to me. Like, it felt more like they're filling it up just to get to the end point, or to another kind of plot point later on in the movie, especially with certain characters, which we're not going to talk about to the spoiler part. And it just really felt off to me, right? And then the storylines that they had, right, were just not like developed enough, right? You're just like, when did this come out of the blue, right? When did this happen? You just don't understand, really, because Infinity War takes place a couple years after Civil War, so you're just kind of like, I don't know, right? Like, it's just, you didn't really touch on this that much. But I mean, at the end of the day, they don't really hurt the movie as much as they do kind of help it, right? I mean, it didn't ruin the movie for me, but at the same time, it was like, I don't know about this, right? Also, I think that the movie has a significant amount of little tiny plot holes that make a big change, right? Especially with certain characters. I was like, wait, can't you do this? Wait, you can do that, right? So how did this happen? And we'll talk about that when we get to the spoiler half. But it just didn't make sense to me of how that all came together. I just didn't really get it. And then there were some characters that were heavily advertised. I'm not going to say which ones. We'll talk about it. That just really didn't do much here and was really kind of confusing as to why they were even here. And there's other characters that were confusing as to why they were there. They just weren't heavily campaigned, right? But we'll get to all that. But Thanos did really well. I loved the villains in this movie. There are multiple. It's not a spoiler. It's the Black Order. They were in the trailers, right? So we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about that right when we get to the spoiler part, like the first point in the spoiler half. So overall, Avengers Infinity War did really well. Again, it's more of an experience and more of a must-see event rather than an actual story, an actual film, like a movie, right? But it still works overall. So I really did like that. All right, spoiler alert. You have been warned because there was a lot to talk about with this half. I mean, a lot. So let's talk about our good friend Thanos, right? The villain of the movie. I loved him. He was a really good villain. I really enjoyed him. And I thought he was actually a little off, right? Like, not in a bad way, like story perspective, but his actual character, right? Like his mindset, his goal, a little off, right? I was like, wait a minute. This just, I don't know. It just, as the movie progressed more and more, you were like, I don't know about his end game, right? It's just kind of like, what? You can't be serious right now. But I did enjoy every single moment. I think that Josh Brolin did really well, especially with the Gamora scene, even though I hated the entire Soul Stone scene. And we'll talk about that in a second. But he did really well with the emotional. He did really well with the fun of it. And isn't it funny that, like, he used like bubbles a lot in the movie and like all these things, he changed things. It was funny with all the Infinity Stones. Out of the Black Order, my favorite was definitely Ebony Maw, but he died so easily. I was like, wait a minute, are you kidding? Like when Spider-Man had the idea for aliens and he was like, let's just destroy one part of the ship so we get sucked out into space. I was like, what? No way. I mean, it kind of worked. Like the alien reference kind of worked. I don't know, it wasn't as clean cut as the Star Wars reference he had in Civil War, so it just kind of was like really confusing for a few seconds, but I really did enjoy his performance. I think Ebony Maw did a really good job. Surprisingly, I really liked Thor in this movie. I hate all the Thor movies, especially Dark World, but I also really hate Ragnarok. I don't know why. Everyone's telling me, why do you hate Ragnarok so much? I actually didn't like it. And I have multiple friends of mine that also didn't like it. So, I don't know. But Thor did really well here, especially with Loki's death. And there's not really a section for Loki's death, so we'll kind of talk about that here. But, I really liked Thor's performance. The emotional, right? He just lost everyone, right? His mother, his father, his brother, right? He's just his sister, even though, she wasn't really in his life, but still, he's literally lost everyone. So I really loved Hemsworth's really motivated performance with Thor's backstory. As for Loki and Heimdall, right? Idris Elba and Tom Hiddleston, I do think they're done, right? I don't think they're going to come back for any more, especially Idris Elba. Please be in the DCEU. Please be Jon Stewart Green Lantern. Please. But as for Tom Hiddleston, I really do think he's done this time. Now, who was over-promoted and didn't have a lot of screen time? Captain America, Black Widow, and Winter Soldier, right? And even Black Panther to some degree. I mean, they didn't really do anything in the movie. And then at this point, you're just kind of like, wait a minute. Did Civil War even happen, right? And we'll talk about that. But it's just so weird that Captain America, who was so heavily advertised, didn't get any screen time at all. I think that even the really big, cliffhanger for the advertisement where he's fighting with Thanos, I really expected that to be a longer scene. Wasn't really that long, right, guys? I mean, it was just kind of really weird. I didn't really get it. I didn't understand why Captain America, had so much build up in the trailers. They didn't really address that much from Civil War. When they did, it was weird, right? Especially the whole Ant-Man and Hawkeye thing, right? They gave themselves up to the government so their families would be protected. I don't know. That was so weird for me. I was like, really? I don't think so, right? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, how are they going to do Ant-Man and the Wasp? I mean, they'll probably explain it, but still, it's just weird. And then again, it just really didn't feel like Civil War happened at all. I mean, right? Everything that they did or they undid, I guess you could say, in Civil War, thrown to the side, right? It was like, wait a minute, right? Like, I expected Captain America and Iron Man to really meet. They didn't really meet because they were on opposite sides of the universe, but it was weird. As for the Guardians of the Galaxy, I was very terrified for them because I really didn't feel like they'd fit in this movie at all, but they did so freaking well, even better than most characters would. And I think that they did really well in terms of how they were utilized, right? I loved Peter Quill, and I loved Star-Lord in this movie, but I really had a really weird feeling when they started joking about Chris Pratt's weight problem, right? I just thought that was really off. I really felt like that was over the line to some degree because he's never really been able to maintain his weight. So for them to joke about it a lot, I don't know, right? With people like Rebel Wilson, Amy Schumer, they're really comfortable with it, but I don't think Chris Pratt is because it's just emotional for him, I think. So that was really weird. But again, Mantis, I actually really loved Mantis here. She was really useful. Groot was useful with the Stormbreaker, right? That was a really nice scene. Rocket was really fun with Chris Hemsworth. They really got to do a lot there. But I hated Gamora. Now let's talk about the Soul Stone because I'm so mad about that. Out of all the theories, right, I thought Gamora was definitely going to be the Soul Stone somehow, right? Like they would explain it, like she fused herself with it or something to keep Thanos away. And that's why she wanted Star-Lord to kill her. But no, she just knew where the Soul Stone was, and then she had a freaking death scene where it really fridged her character. Now, fridging is really complex because I think for some people, definition of fridging is a little different for others. Like you could say that Rachel's death in The Dark Knight that was fridged, and it really helped Two-Face's storyline, but she was really fridged here. I mean, she was literally thrown off a cliff so that Thanos could get the Soul Stone from Red Skull. And I was like, wait a minute, why is Red Skull here? And I was like, okay, so we got sucked into the Tesseract in the first Cap movie. I get that. But how did he end up with the Soul Stone? Those are two different stones. It was really confusing. It didn't really make much sense to me. I just didn't like that Gamora was fridged, especially when she was like, ha ha, Thanos, you have nothing that you love. Like, there's just no way you're going to win. But she's so stupid because she's the only, it was terrible. It was lame. As for Doctor Strange and Wong I didn't get Wong, right? Where did he go again? If you guys can comment down below, that'd be really good. Like, where did he go? Didn't he go to protect the Sanctum, right? Or something? I don't know. That was weird. Where did Wong go? I forgot about that. As for Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch did a really good job here, but I blame the entire ending on Doctor Strange, right? If you could choose between Iron Man and the Time Stone, you should choose the Time Stone. I mean, that was just ridiculous. And also, when they were stuck on that spaceship, right, when Iron Man and Spider-Man and Strange were stuck on the ship, and he was like, how do we get out of here? I was like, can't you make portals with your freaking hands? He might have lost his sling ring. Well, no, actually he didn't, because later on in the fight scene, he had the sling ring for Mantis to jump on Thanos. I don't know. It was just, again, plot hole. Spider-Man, I loved Tom Holland here, mainly because he did a good job with selling his death scene that others really couldn't do, mainly because he's so young, and that's the kind of idea for his characters. He's too young to be an Avenger, right? And I really feel like that, when he said, I'm not ready to die, Mr. Stark, I really feel like Tony had a lot of guilt there that we'll probably see in the next movie, right? Avengers 4, because they've already finished filming it, so it's coming out next year, I think. Hulk was really useless. I don't really understand why they put Hulk in this movie, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I really did like the first half where Bruce was like, we have to have Steve and the others. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, that was logical, right? But then later on, well, Hulk was like, no, like that was off. I hated it. I hated it so much. I hate Hulk. I already hated Hulk anyway, but that was dumb, right? Why would you have Hulk in the movie if you're not going to use him? And then not explain why. It just didn't really make any sense to me. And they didn't even kill him off. And I was like, wait a minute. So out of all the useful characters, you killed off the one that just wouldn't help the team at all. So Hulk was terrible. They should really get rid of him, right? Kill him off. As for Scarlet Witch and Vision, didn't make any sense, right? I was like, wait a minute. When did the relationship happen? I mean, I guess it was really sweet and I liked it, but then they didn't touch on it earlier, and you're just kind of like, did they really sell me on this relationship? I didn't enjoy it. I didn't really like it. I did like, however, that Wanda had to later kill Vision. And she did have a little bit of hesitation, but when it came down to it, she just, boom, she striked. And as for Wanda as a whole character, I really think they should go over her power set a little bit more, right? I mean, her power set to me is a little off. I even forgot that she had the power to manipulate minds, right? So I'm like, wait a minute, what is your power set right now? So I do think that though they should not give her her own movie, and Elizabeth Olsen doesn't want that, in the next Avengers movie, I think they should really establish her power set more, right? Or some wherever she ends up next, they need to really touch ground on that, touch base, right, with her power set. As a whole, though, the ending was just really good. I loved the ending to Infinity War, but I also hated it. I was like, all my favorite characters are dying, right? But obviously, they're going to bring them back somehow. Guardians 3 has been confirmed. Black Panther 2, I think, has been confirmed, right? Spider-Man 2, all these things are going to be coming up. So they're going to reverse it. And at that point, you're just kind of like, the deaths didn't really matter, so it's like, what's the point? But the ending was good, and I really do like the end credit scene, which we'll talk about in its own video. But out of all the Marvel movies, I think this one was definitely the most intense, right? And I think the Russo brothers did a really good job with that as well. They always do a good job, so it was great to see them here. What did you guys think of Avengers Infinity War? Comment down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you agree with a lot of the points that I made about Gamora's fridging, right? The relationships, right? With Scarlet Witch and Vision. And pretty much all the other points that were brought up, especially Doctor Strange, right? So what do you guys think about that? Comment down below. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.